Okay, so we've been talking about space and intention. And by talking about space and intention, we can't help but also loop in focus and distraction. But I think focus and distraction is a huge topic in and of itself. You know, like while we can understand that being singularly focused on something is good, the question then becomes like, okay, how do I actually do that? So let's look at how we can cultivate concentration, and some different tactics that you've learned for cutting out distraction. So yeah, I'm curious what you have on that.
Yeah, so there's essentially, look, we've been building the case of it's possible to do a lot more. It's focus, the ability to focus and actually deeply engage with work is basically the mechanism that enables that switch. This whole thing essentially rests on your ability to concentrate on one thing at a time for a sustained amount of time. And actually, we'll cover later that you probably don't want it to even be that long. We're talking like 30 minutes, an hour, maybe an hour plus if you are doing either really deep work or kind of flow state induced work. But there's a whole like rest and break and recovery section coming up too. There's essentially two camps or two levers you can use to help maintain concentration for longer. One is increasing your ability to concentrate, and one is getting rid of the things that make it difficult to concentrate. All right. So basically cultivating deeper focus. And this is a muscle that you can build like literally anything else, and getting rid of distractions. Those are largely the two camps. So yeah, let's start with focus. I think most people watching this course, most people in these circles that we float around with, I mean, cultivating focus has absolutely nothing to do with productivity. It's certainly not a technique that came around through productivity, and there's almost no recommendation that is work-based I'll give here to cultivate focus. This is very much in the realm of yoga and meditation, right? Actual techniques to cultivate concentration. There's literally concentration meditation. And maybe if you wanted the starting point, Google concentration meditations. So there are a few that, I mean, I have landed on that are really helpful for me. And I might only give one and say, if you're going to do only one of these, you should do this. And it might sound cliche, but you need to meditate. Meditation is literally nothing else other than the practice of being able to bring yourself back to focus on an object of focus. Like that is the whole thing. It doesn't matter what your object of concentration is. It might be compassion for other people. It might be the breath moving through you. It might be on more kind of esoteric states of consciousness. But at the end of the day, it's maintaining extended focus and concentration on a singular object, quite frankly. And man, anyone who has ever tried to start a meditation practice will know how hard that is. It's one of the most basic requests you can make of yourself. I'm going to sit here, do nothing, and concentrate. And it is one of the hardest things you'll ever try to do. And therefore, do it a lot more. Like build the muscle of meditation. Build the muscle of single focus concentration. One of the most classic concentration meditations I've ever used, because there are different forms of meditation. There are concentration meditations. It's essentially pick an object. Candlelight is probably the most classic one, but arguably just pick anything across the room from yourself and concentrate on it. Like period. Just maintain both your, I guess, external attention. Like, are you actually locked in on the thing? But also your internal attention. Are you actually looking at this, but thinking about all the 14 other things you want to do? Or are you actually focused on that? And man, that practice in and of itself will do wonders for developing your own concentration.
I wrote an article on High Existence all about cultivating concentration and mindfulness that I'll link in the description for this chapter. In terms of a book that I'd recommend, The Attention Revolution There's a book specifically about this by Alan Wallace. Yeah, and it's interesting because even though your recommendation, about meditation was not even specific for productivity, because we know that developing concentration and attention improves all aspects of life, and meditation wasn't necessarily invented to become more productive. We know that according to the Noble Eightfold Path, that work can be a spiritual practice if it's aligned work. And so therefore there is some scenario where becoming more efficient and more productive can actually create more virtue and less suffering in the world. And that's like, if you can find aligned work. And so from that perspective, if you take the job of caring for someone, right? There are many carers in the world. Take the job of, being a doctor or a parent. If you can develop more concentration there, it's not just about getting more stuff done. It's about like showing up with that quality of mind that is really going to help someone, like massively going to help someone, and that will have a ripple effect. So yeah, concentration, the cultivation of concentration has so many benefits beyond just like being able to be less distracted.
Yeah. And actually, you don't have to do seated meditation just to cultivate concentration, but you'll actually notice that almost all of the other forms or techniques I have for cultivating focus are essentially forms of meditation, right? Another classic one that's landed for me really well is yoga. Yoga is essentially moving meditation, just putting yourself in perhaps increasingly strenuous physical positions under the intention of maintaining focus on what's happening internally inside of you. And a lot of actually the original yoga postures were actually just cross-legged seated meditation positions and putting your concentration on that. Meditation and concentration are actually two of the 8 limbs of yoga, of what modern yoga has become. They're their own entire branches. Yoga is exceptional, and I really like it because seated meditation is really, it's the place to start. It can be the alpha and omega of cultivating focus. The thing is, you are also in the absolute best possible context to focus, which is seated, eyes closed, no distractions, nothing happening. Life, particularly life at work or life at home, depending on where you do your work, or life at a coffee shop, is not static, seated with your eyes closed. There's a lot going on, both inside of you, in the world around you. We did just cover how to try to eliminate as much of that as possible, but you can't control the entire world. So actually, I like having some meditative practices that actually throw curveballs at you. Yoga is one. It throws movement at you. There are even, some plant medicines, rape, kambo, a lot of, the psychedelic experience at large throws a huge curveball at you and still asks you to remain center or find your way back to center. So even those can help concentration a lot. You also touched on something really important there that is worth underscoring, which is actually one of the easiest ways to cultivate your focus on things is to start doing things that you actually care about. It's not talked about enough, but actually do things that you are intrinsically motivated to do, and you will often find that you don't need to force yourself to do them. You don't need to cultivate focus because you are deeply focused on them because they're engaging. And that actually becomes a virtuous feedback loop in and of itself. You like the thing, so you focus on it. You focus on it, so you feel better, and you direct more time, energy, and attention to it. So actually just start relentlessly cutting away or trying to move away from doing things that you don't like. There's a huge kind of asterisk here, which is, I heard Daniel Schmachtenberger say this once, and I absolutely love it. He's like, part of Dharma is making food. Like, there's always kind of mundane stuff to do in anything, right? One of the big examples I have is I do the accounting for high existence. There's no part of me that is intrinsically motivated for high existence, but I know that it serves the actual entire thing. It enables me to keep it going. So in that way, I can keep focusing on it. But yeah, actually just doing the things that you care about, or at least trying to maximize that, is huge for focus. Huge. This is probably a really nice segue into managing distractions, because doing things that you care about goes both ways. It helps focus, but it also clears away distractions, because once you start noticing the things that you don't like, you can then take it on to start pruning or cutting away as much of it as possible.
Someone comes to you and they are just getting into like productivity. You know, maybe they've worked in like a 9 to 5 and been told what to do for the last 5 years, and now they're self-driven. They want to do stuff on their own. You know, they're showing up to create their own kind of meaningful work through whatever project that they've chosen. And they just tell you, like, I'm a scattered brain. You know, I'm very distracted. My phone is constantly pinging. I love all the social media apps. I can't walk past my fridge without, grabbing something to eat. I'm very agitated, very, physical. And the idea of me sitting down for an hour and focusing on the one thing is so hard because of all these distractions. Where do I begin? Like, what do I actually do? How can I start?
Wow. Oh, this question can balloon. I think the first thing to say is, I wouldn't feel bad about it, because that's basically the expected output of society and culture today. That's literally baseline normal. So, I mean, look, like, doing completely fine. The fact that you even recognize what it's doing to you, your body, your psyche, and want to change it is a huge win. Like, actually give yourself some credit for that. Again, I think people here actually consciously or unconsciously want a silver bullet answer, some magic formula that's going to fix it, instead of just sit down and do the work. So what I mean by that is, you basically just need to clean everything up, right? If I had like 2 to 3 hours with someone and we were just sitting down across from each other, I would be like, okay, what kind of food do you eat? Do you have a sleep schedule? Do you like your job? Do you have a broken relationship with friends or family? Does your phone bark at you every 30 seconds? Like, if any of those answers are yes, right, you just write that down and address it to the best of your ability in that moment. It's literally just a cleaning up process. There's a framing here I'd really like to introduce, and this goes far beyond concentration, distraction, work. It actually applies to damn near everything, but I have really come to like it, which is almost any positive trait you would want to cultivate in life is basically like the sun and sun's relationship to earth, which is it's always there, it's always shining, it's always available to you. The only reason you're not constantly in the sun is because there are clouds, or actually because there are ceilings. Sometimes you can put your own concrete clouds in the way, but it's basically just blocked by something. And if you go through the process of clearing away the clouds, you don't actually have to cultivate any of this stuff. It just arises naturally because it's unblocked. I would argue that concentration, meaning, confidence, peace, stillness, all of that applies to that metaphor. The thing is, this is what I meant at the beginning of this answer, which is, I would argue that modern culture creates extremely cloudy days for literally everyone. All the pings, all the sugar, all the shoulds, all the demands, all the requests, all the isolation, all these things are just clouds that fog up your entire existence. And honestly, as quickly as you can and are comfortable with, and as completely as you can and are comfortable with, cut them off. Like, stop doing it. I mean, I'm happy to double click on that, because these are a lot of my distraction recommendations, which is, and I started off our conversation today with this, which is, I would recommend going as close to 0 as you possibly can, and only when you need to adding stuff on. So, I mean, let's start one thing at a time. Your phone and your notifications, like, you're just not that important. I would almost argue that you don't even want to be that important. Like, turn off every single way your phone makes a noise or makes a request of you. Like, go into settings, go into notification center, go through every single thing and just be like off, 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 off. All of it, including vibrations, including like lock screen or like notification center. Like, no, just cut the whole thing off. There may be times where you have to change that. Cool. But let that happen before you go and change it. And you might be surprised like how little of those things you need to change. Like, I have a few articles here on people's relationship to tech that I'll include in the notes on like how to deal with this stuff specifically, but people are way too controlled by their technology instead of controlling their tech. And again, I would just go as close to the root as you can muster. Just turn it all off.
So like this is bringing up 2 points. The first thing is if something is really urgent, people will always ring you, so like those text notifications are never as important as you think. Like if there's an actual emergency, your phone will ring multiple times, right? So you don't have to worry about that. And the kind of confronting question, this is something I've been thinking about for a little while, is especially with distraction, people complain about being distracted and not having enough focus. And my question is, to what extent are you setting yourself up to be distracted? Like, or put another way, to what extent are you choosing to be distracted? So like, why is your phone even in the same room as you when you're working? Like, why, like, you must know, you're not that ignorant. You do know that the phone is distracting and it's in the same room as you for work. Like, how about just moving the phone to a different room? It's a very basic thing. And so I think on some level, we kind of subtly set ourselves up for failure, because it's a bit scary actually to be like, I'm going to now be completely focused and do this thing without any distractions, because the distractions provide a level of comfort, like a familiarity. I don't have to meet my potential because there's this new thing to focus on. Like, I don't have to be the best version of me because there's this beep that I need to look at. And it's like, oh, that's comfortable. I can just do the comfortable thing. And so, yeah, that just ties into what you were saying. A lot of people, myself included, kind of leave distracting things in the environment. It goes back to space as well, because we don't deep down want to be focused. Like on the deepest level, we don't want it. If we did, we would do the things to be focused.
Yeah, and this is why we've laid out so much of why the kind of external game of productivity and output is an internal game with yourself, because I completely agree with that. I would also put, for a lot of people, an investigation of, yeah, but you kind of feel pretty good about yourself when you check your phone again and have 20 notifications, don't you? Like, you're kind of popular, aren't you? And that makes you feel pretty good. Like that little ping is so sneaky. Because, yeah, there is going to be a reality where if you dropped all the notifications from your phone and you were working for 3.5 hours and you came back and you didn't have a single message, how would that make you feel? No one's thinking about you, man. Nothing. Like, that actually hurts. That hits such a core pain in a lot of people that actually, yeah, the distractions are helpful. They make me feel significant. They make me feel important. They make me feel seen, heard, loved, respected, admired, like all of it. And actually, that is going to have to be one of the things you're going to have to reconcile. You're going to have to reconcile it with yourself. Like that is big. So both of those, yeah, the kind of ready-made excuses for yourself and the kind of ego validation people get. And I mean, we're literally only talking about digital notifications here. That's only one thing, right? What happens when it's, because there are a few others, like most meetings in your life are garbage. They're too long. They're unimportant. Like, would you actually be comfortable asking someone like, hey, can we not do this? I really need to reclaim some of my time, energy, and attention. Like, this is what I mean by just relentlessly kill distractions. And that can be like waiting for people. That can be meetings, notifications are a huge example of this, but anything that pulls your focus and attention away, get rid of it. Go to 0 first. And if you actually need it, bring it back slowly. But you will be surprised once you start just ridiculously cutting this stuff off, like how little you actually need or how unnecessary those things were to the stuff that was most important to you and what you wanted to get done.